What's up, weirdos? How's it going? It's your boy Jay Kraft. Back with you again. A little bit of story time coming your way. You know, I have a whole list of things that I want to cover on this Universe of Weirdos podcast. A whole gigantic notebook full of topics that I wanted to cover. What did I want to talk about this week? And you know, I have a lot of things that I could have talked about, and I decided none of them, because, you know, I like writing. I like writing quite a bit. I love writing fiction. I've always liked writing movie scripts and TV pilots and comic books, even though I never planned on them really going anywhere, or I didn't really do a whole lot to pursue the creative side of it. More of just writing the actual scripts and telling the stories has always been my forte. The actual business side and the production side of making things has never really been my bag. But I took a trip to the Toy Pit here in Indianapolis with my family over the weekend, and it really stoked my my imagination as far as what I could do for this episode of the podcast this week, because this Toy Pit, it's a hell of a toy story, you know. It kind of harkens back to the days of old with the Toys R Us and the everything, but the problem is, taking my son there, it harkens back to the days of old with Toys R Us and stuff. So there's a lot of older toys there, not really a whole lot of things that my son would be totally into. So, but you know, a lot of nostalgia came over me. I got to see all the old action figures that I had when I was a kid, a lot of old, you know, superhero things and old toys that I never had, but I remember seeing them in Toys R Us and stuff. Really cool place, this Toy Pit here in Indianapolis. It's a really nice place. But I was looking at all of the really old action figures, and while I was looking through a couple of them, two action figures just stood there staring at me. It was Chapel and Bad Rock, these two old superheroes from the comic book Youngblood from when I was a kid, and it just reminded me of, oh my God, I almost wrote that comic book. I almost wrote Youngblood. I had a hell of a time pursuing my comic book writing. I wouldn't say career, it was more of a hobby. I made my own comic book called Life Under Kaiju. If you want to check it out, you can hit me up, planetwnba@gmail.com. Want a copy of Life Under Kaiju? I'll send you one. I'll send you a digital copy for free. I don't care. Just hit me up some way. Twitter/X, jcraft247. But, you know, I self-produced my own comic book at one point, but before that, it was just a big grind of trying to get publishers to let me write for their characters, or, you know, try to take my original ideas and pair me up with an artist, because I didn't really have the independent comic book creator money to be able to pay somebody a shit ton of money per page. And I got really good at selling myself, going to these conventions and stuff. And I actually, when I made Life Under Kaiju, I decided to make a little one-off podcast to give to my Kickstarter list, like Kickstarter rewards, you know, so people could listen to it, listen to my journey into independent comic book creating. But the story kind of devolved into what really gave me a big old blow to my, I don't know if I want to pursue this. I don't know if I want to keep doing this, if these are the kind of people that I have to go through. So the indie comic scene for me was a little bit weird, but, you know, seeing those Youngblood toys at the Toy Pit really reminded me of how I almost wrote those characters. I almost wrote Youngblood. Basically what happened, I'm going to play my whole podcast for you that I created years ago. I'm just creating a little intro for it right now. but I'm going to play for you my whole Kickstarter. I'm not whole. I'm going to edit it up. I'm going to cut it up a little bit, chop it up so, things don't sound too weird. Thank you for backing my Kickstarter. I'm going to cut stuff like that out because it's not going to make sense when you listen to it. But, just a little bit of context. The clip that I'm about to play for you comes from a few years ago when I decided to chronicle my own little journey into independent comic book creating. This, again, like I said, recorded years ago. It still was a great time. What happened was, I don't know how much of this is going to be picked up in my original thing. I don't know where I'm going to cut it, where I'm not, but the basic background of this story for my strange story time is Youngblood was a comic book created by Rob Liefeld in the 1990s, and at some point he lost the rights to his own characters. And then they were bought by a dude named Andrew Rev, who used to run a comic book company called Comico. Way back in the day, they produced books like The Elementals and things like that. They were kind of a more indie comic book, but they were a bigger indie. They produced some pretty decent stuff, but at some point, they started making all their characters fuck in the comics. Like, he started, like, basically going like, yeah, I know we have a good superhero comic book team book working here, but, like, we're going to make some porn specials where all these characters bang each other. And it was like really strange. So like that kind of basically ruined this guy's whole journey into his independent comic book creating. And then he came back years later after he bought the rights to Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, which I thought, this could be a good opportunity for me. And I thought maybe I'll reach out to this guy, and oh boy, did fuckery ensue, because he started his own thing, Terrific Productions, right? Terrific Productions. We're going to make the best comic books there are. It's completely terrific. And after talking to the guy for a little while, started to realize this might be a con. I think this guy might be a con man. I think this might be some sort of bullshit. But he seems to have the legitimate rights to these books, so what should I do here? Well, why do you need me to tell the story again? You're about to hear it right now. Here is my Kickstarter reward from Life Under Kaiju from years ago, my journey into independent comic books, and how everything got kind of derailed by this Andrew Rev motherfucker. So I hope you like it. I noticed that somebody on Twitter started posting about how he now has the rights to Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and he's going to convince people like Alan Moore to write for it. And I just decided, fuck this, I'm going to send this dude a message. And I was like, hey man, Alan Moore is very retired. And I don't think that if you even did convince him to come out of retirement, that he would put the focus that these characters deserve, or that you want him to put in to these characters. So why don't you just look for somebody that has some passion? Like, if you think that these characters are going to sell themselves, you shouldn't really care that an unknown name is attached to it as a writer. So maybe you should give some of the, lesser known people a shot. And the guy responded to me. He asked me for my phone number. He introduced himself as Andrew Rev, which I am sure so many of you have heard about Andrew Rev and Terrific Productions on Twitter lately, because oh boy, have they blown up, and not in the way he wants to. Basically, my story is pretty much the same as everybody else's. But I was just one of the first ones, and he sent me, a thing asking me for my phone number. I gave him my phone number, and he called me and then proceeded to keep me on the phone for like 3.5 hours. And just everything. It was supposed to be a pitch. I was supposed to give him my idea for what I wanted his Youngblood story to be, which I thought was actually a fairly decent idea. I'm not going to go over it here because I still have it written down and saved and time-stamped just in case that script does come out and has some of my ideas in it. I'm going to sue the shit out of that asshole. But, it was just 3 hours of just like rambling and rambling. And this was when my son was still pretty young. All of his 3-hour phone conversations that he insists on having, like, it caused me to like eat dinner in my bedroom away from my family. I missed putting my son to bed for like the first time ever, pretty much. And it was just like, you're kind of making me feel like shit, and you're kind of interfering with my family life, dude. Can we like get to some points here? Because during those 3-hour conversations, Andrew Rev seemed like, I'm not making any libelous statements here. Let me just say that throughout the course of my life, I have met several people that were under the influence of cocaine. And Andrew Rev acted exactly like every single one of them. Like, he was just everywhere with his thought process, talking about how like, yeah, and then we're gonna like take these like fair use characters like Thor and Hercules and Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and we're gonna incorporate them into Youngblood, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. And it was just like, I want to make it kind of like The Boys. You could tell he just watched The Boys on like season 1 on Amazon, and he was like wanting to make his comic like that, which is kind of weird because that's a comic that already exists. And then, and then when he started talking about his business practices, I was like, I need to do some research on this fucking guy, because he started talking about how he expected Youngblood #1 to sell at least 100,000 copies, and he was going to sign people to exclusive contracts that said, if it doesn't sell 100,000 copies, then no one's going to get paid. And that's when I immediately was like, this smells like a con. This smells like a big old fucking con job. And so I looked into him. I Googled him first and saw a blog post from Tony Akins that said what it's like to work for a cocksucker. So that was my first warning sign there. And then I decided just to do a full-on background check on the guy. And when I did, I uncovered some really shitty information about him, like how he treats his own family, for fuck's sake. Like, there was a legal document that I found that I've shared all over Twitter. I even have some audio of the court proceedings if anybody is interested. Hit me up. And in this case, it was like a post thing for a divorce. I do have some divorce documents of his, but it's like 350 pages or some shit, and I am never going to read that. Fuck it. And in this divorce document that I found, it was like this like appeal that he tried to steal. I'm going to say steal a house from his ex-wife and minor daughter at the time. So, she was still like living at home with her mom. And the fucked up part about it was that was a house that woman bought before they were even married. And he took her to court to try to take it. This dude tried to take a house away from his own ex-wife and daughter. These are people that he's supposed to love more than anybody in the world. And that's when I just thought, look, if this guy is the kind of guy who's going to fuck over the people that he's supposed to love the most, what's going to stop him from trying to fuck over me, who he's probably never going to meet in person? And I don't know, I just decided to ignore him. He was like, yeah, write me a script for Die Hard, the character, and send it to me. And then I never did, because it was like, why do I want to do business with this guy? Why do I want to just keep going down this road, like this endless road of fucking disappointment of, yeah, cool, I'm glad that you liked my script, but are you going to do anything with it? It's the same song and dance that I've been going through with, passing off my scripts to people at conventions and all of that stuff. Like, and it was just creepy and weird, and he was just a complete scatterbrained weirdo, and I don't even know like necessarily what to think about it. And so I just ignored it. I just decided, fuck Andrew Rev, fuck Terrific Productions. I'm not going to let these guys invade my thoughts anymore. And I just kind of moved on with my life until I started seeing on Twitter, hey, I started doing this job for a guy at Terrific Productions, and the dude never paid me. He tried to rearrange the contract on me, and was saying that his artists were lying, and it's just like all kinds of weird shit where it's like when like 10 plus people have the same story, then you can't really say, no, that person's lying. It's like these people probably don't know each other and they all have the same experience. I mean, I don't know them personally. I've never talked to most of these people, and they have the same experience with you that I had. So what do you mean everybody's lying and it's a conspiracy to take you down? No, motherfucker, you are a shitty businessman, you have shitty business practices, and you're trying to swindle people into doing work for free. And that's what you were saying to me when you had me on the phone going, yeah, nobody's going to get paid unless Youngblood sells 100,000 copies. And then he also said to me while we were on the phone that he was going to take my scripts and then he was going to pay Alan Moore to put his name on them because nobody knows or cares who I am, which, you know, fuck you, dude. I want credit for my fucking work. And that's the other thing that bothered me about him, too, that really threw me off, is that he ran a comic book company called Comico. Well, he took over a comic book company that was actually good at one point and drove it into the ground called Comico and started producing fucking porn with their characters and shit. I remember those books when I was young, and I was like, yeah, I love Elementals, but my mom won't let me buy these fucking sex specials. Like, fucking asshole. Like, what are you doing? Trying to make porn. And so, you know, it was a weird thing to hear the guy say that he was going to have somebody else put my name on it and all this stuff, and that because nobody knows or cares who I am. And it was also really jarring because he would talk about guys like Brian Azzarello and Tony Daniel, and like in the same breath, like he would just basically be like, yeah, you know, they're great guys and they're wonderful at what they do. They're like the greatest in their field, but you know, they were pieces of shit that I should have fucking got into exclusive contracts because the second DC came calling, they jumped ship like some fucking snakes in the grass. Those aren't his exact words, by the way. That's just, you know, me paraphrasing. Okay, because I know he's so litigious. Like he tries to throw that shit out on Twitter all the time. I am very tortuous and I am litigious and I will take it to arbitration. He says words that he thinks are fancy. And, you know, I knew all along that this motherfucker's not going to sue anybody. You don't hit up someone on Twitter and go, what's your address? I'm going to sue you. That's not how suing people work. For one, if you have anything to say against him, or if you're one of the artists that are now sharing the unpaid pages that he did not fucking give you money for, and now he's threatening to sue you, if he asks for your address so he could have his lawyer contact you, he's full of shit. That's not how it works. If there's grounds for a lawsuit, you'll get a cease and desist letter, which just basically means delete those tweets and everything's fine. And then if you don't, then you're going to get a summons for court. You know, the lawyer's going to send you a subpoena and you're going to have to fucking go to court for it. The state will take care of all of the what's your address shit. So he's just making hollow threats at people, trying to get them to leave him alone. And he's constantly doing damage control now. And I decided that once everybody had the same story of, you know, this guy reached out to me, this dude, Rob Shepard, reached out to me, who, by the way, me and Rob reached out to Andrew around the same time. And I know this because I randomly one day, after a long phone conversation with Andrew Rev, got a Twitter message from this dude that I didn't know. Not a Twitter message, he publicly sent it to me. Well, that was just a GIF saying, I sense much fear in you, of like Yoda. And I was just like, first of all, you don't sense fear in shit. Like, I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of some random internet shit talker who sends GIFs to people. And also, dude, you're a writer. What are you using GIFs for? Like, if you're a writer, use your words, you know? That's your tool, not somebody else's words that's in a fucking little motion thing that somebody else already made. Like, you know, if you have something to say, be specific, motherfucker. I'm not intimidated by you. You're clearly out of shape, and I've done martial arts my entire life. So, like, whatever. And, you know, those things would pop up every now and then. Like I would get messages and, Twitters that from people who I just kind of thought were probably the same guy, just on different accounts. And it would always end the same, which was, look, I'm sure Terrific Productions is going to end up having a booth at a Comic-Con somewhere. I go to a lot of Comic-Cons, and I'm willing to grab you by your fat neck and pull you across the table and beat you. So it was just always just ended up me threatening violence because, you know what? I know it's kind of juvenile and childish and shit, but at the same time, that's how I would handle something if somebody tried to do that to me in the real world. If somebody came up to you right in your face and was just basically like, hey, fuck you, you piece of shit, I'm way better than you, we'd probably be throwing hands pretty fucking quick. And I'm not intimidated by any of his stupid cronies. Even Rob Shepherd's brother, Chris Shepherd, who is now a writer for, I believe, Troll on Terrific Productions' release schedule, who, came at me on Twitter one day because I said that no comic book store that I know of was going to order any of Andrew's books because they follow him on Twitter and see his horrendous social media presence, and they see all of the top tier professionals that are calling him out for being a piece of shit. And when I said that, he was like, well, Chris Shepherd said, it's a good thing that you're not in control of every comic book shop because you sound like a leftist liberal Biden stool pigeon, which was like, you just made that about politics, which I don't get that either. Because here's the thing is I am fairly apolitical. Like I think that, like most people will usually generically say just to avoid arguments. I think that if you get into politics, you're probably a piece of crap. So I don't usually put my stock in politicians, but I'm also understanding that if I was a big Biden supporter, why would that hurt my feelings? Like, if I were a guy who thought that Joe Biden was awesome and that I'm going to vote for him and I'm campaigning for him, why would somebody go, you sound like a leftist liberal? Like, why would that hurt my feelings? Like, I would be like, yeah, I am. Like, what the fuck of it? You're a Trump supporter, which, I mean, again, I'm fairly apolitical, but I know that Donald Trump's a piece of shit. I've thought that ever since I saw him on TV years ago saying that if he wasn't related to his daughter, he'd probably be dating her. So that's pretty fucked up. And never liked the guy since then. I am fucking amazed that people voted for the dude, to be completely honest, but I don't know. We gotta own the leftist liberals. Fucking stupid ass. And then Chris, after I, called him out on it and made fun of him for sounding stupid as fuck, he decided to try to dox me and my wife online. He was referring to her by her first name and like hashtagging Indianapolis where I live. And like, it was kind of weird because it was like, man, you're not finding any like information on me because that stuff was on my Twitter profile. I mentioned my wife's name in my Twitter profile and my son's name, which I've since deleted because I don't want to deal with that fucking horse shit ever again. It actually caused me a lot of grief of my wife being like, why would this ugly motherfucker even mention my name? Like, why would you even put us in a position? And it was like, I didn't put us in a position. That motherfucker just went low because he's a piece of fucking garbage who can't defend his own stance without trying to get personal with somebody. And, I just like everybody else, I made fun of him, told him, fucking. The thing that bothered me, well, it didn't bother me. I actually found it quite telling about him was that he kept saying stuff like, oh, you better watch out. Your wife might start spooning with someone else tonight. And it's like, nah, dude, she's asleep in the bed next to me. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And if anything, you bringing that up without knowing her or I personally just kind of leads me to believe that you've been cheated on a lot. And, reasonably so, because I saw his pictures. Man, I made fun of him. I said that he wasn't in shape. And he was like, oh, I'm not in shape. And I was like, no, you're not. You're A shape. I'll give you that. You're definitely A shape. You managed to somehow have no chin and a double chin at the same time. So, I mean, I'm not making any weird stretches here. You're a fucking piece of shit. You're going after somebody's wife and making things political when all I'm doing is stating that your fucking boss is an obvious con man, you fucking piece of shit. So, and all of that came down, and I feel like I was pretty instrumental in digging up all this dirt on Andrew and spreading the word across Twitter and, basically exposing him for being the garbage human being that he is. And now it seems, at this point anyways, that everybody is against him. Like, I've seen Mitch Gerrits, I've seen Gail Simone, I've seen major heads of big independent comic book publishers calling this dude out. Don't work for this guy. People have been posting their versions of contracts, which I think breaks down to like $10 a page that he's offering to pay artists. And then I'll give you 5% of net profits, which means zero. Like, they're not a profitable company. And in my background check on him, this dude has never had a legitimate source of income since, like, I think it was 1997 or maybe 1994, something like that. But even in his divorce proceedings, his wife said that he's never had an income throughout the entire course of their marriage. So this guy was just a big piece of shit. And his wife even alleges that he would go to Vietnam for essentially sex tourism. Like, he went there and was like sleeping with a woman that he employed as like an assistant, which that screams sexual predator. And then, combine that with the fact that at one point he said that he wanted to make a comic book about people's rape stories. Not joking. That really happened. And it's like, dude, you're fucking disgusting. And also, a dude who used to produce porn probably shouldn't be the kind of person that wants to tell a sexual assault story. It sounds like you're just making something that you want to jerk off to, and in a really disgusting way. So I just decided that, like, after everybody, like, I mean, like I said, Gail Simone, all of those people, like people with huge influence in the comic book industry started tweeting about it, I kind of knew from then on that I don't really have to put in a whole lot of more work on this. Like, I can just kind of let this lie because it's grown beyond where I can possibly take it. Like, it's good. It was a good thing because those people have influence over other comic book stores. Like, for sure, any comic book store that has a Twitter probably follows these artists and these producers and these editors. And they are definitely not going to order fucking Youngblood #1. You're definitely not going to sell 100,000 copies of it. Fuck. Like that. As soon as he said that, I was like, dude, no one's getting paid. He's not paying a single person. Fuck this guy. But, I decided after that happened that it's grown beyond me, that my work here is done. I still engage in some posts about it on Twitter just because I like making fun of him. It's fun to make fun of him. Like, he will tell you on Twitter that, like, oh, these people going after us, they're part of another comic book company or they're being controlled by one specific guy. I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of people are a lot like me, and it's just fun to make fun of you. That's really all it is. Like, that's why they call it making fun, because it's really interesting to watch you melt down on Twitter every time an industry professional calls you out and calls you a piece of shit. And he is a piece of shit. Fuck him. Fuck Andrew Rev. I am actually going to be doing an interview with somebody to talk about my experience, a reputable journalist from a reputable journalistic site. And, after that, I don't think that I'm going to be doing much publicly to talk about him. I'll probably still troll him a little bit on Twitter, especially when Troll comes out. That's going to be, that's beautiful poetry right there. I'm going to troll you over Troll. And, so going forward, I don't think I'm going to mention too much more about the guy. I shared my story here. I've shared my story on the internet. I've shared my story. I'm going to share my story today with a journalist. And after that, I want this guy out of my life. I have a successful Kickstarter campaign now because after that whole situation with him, it kind of bummed me out because it was like it put a damper on my creative process for a while because, I started to think like, I'm not the guy who has the whole lot of resources to pay somebody to help me self-publish this book or any of the ideas that I have. So it's like, I'm going to have to keep grinding it out like this forever, and I'm going to always experience guys like this. So, like, what the fuck is the point in writing? Like, if I'm going to get involved in the creative industry and then have to deal with people that aren't creative, that just want to make money off of your creativity, like, what the fuck is the point? And then, my wife, who is fucking amazing, by the way, like, fuck you, Chris Shepard, trying to even cause a fucking problem in my marriage, you piece of shit. My wife is fantastic, and she's supportive as hell. And we kind of came to the idea of, look, I know money's a little bit tight, but maybe you can set aside a little bit of money to pay somebody to make this book for you. And then once that's out, you could throw it on Kickstarter. And if that makes money, then it gives you money back to be able to put into another book. And then you can keep doing that. And then you don't have to deal with these shady fucks like Andrew Rev. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote Life Under Kaiju. I wrote the first full story arc, and I thought that it was pretty good. And I decided that I would reach out to somebody. I'd find somebody to help me turn it into a reality. I found Edgardo Granell Ruiz, who is fucking amazing, and he's a great guy too. He would never end up getting swindled by somebody like Andrew Rev. So after that, he and I worked on it, and then I got DC Hopkins to put letters to it, and now it's on Kickstarter, and it was fully funded within a week. So I don't know, like, it was a success, and to be honest, that makes me more happy than anything. Like, it completely, it was really the whole aftermath with him, where I even, after being bummed out and my wife, encouraging me to keep going and, maybe self-produce your own shit, like, after that, it really kind of like lit a fire under me to where it's like, I don't need these guys anymore. And I'm definitely going to take this horse shit Andrew Rev con job and I'm going to turn it into a positive for myself. And I kind of did. It's helped me connect more with the indie comics community, which, I'm not the greatest at social media, especially Twitter. Like, I can be entertaining enough on Twitter, but as you can tell, 30 something minutes into this little solo podcast, I'm a long-winded motherfucker. I like to ramble. So, 100 and something characters really isn't my bag. And I don't like Facebook because everything ends up turning into a political argument for some reason. Leftist liberal Biden stool pigeon. Fuck you, Chris. But it really, it helped me connect with, good artists and really good people that all got swindled by the guy. And now we all support each other. And I'm pretty sure anyways, almost every person that I've seen that's been fucked over by Andrew Rev has gone on to produce their own books, which really makes me happy. And people are supporting them. And I've even gotten people supporting my Kickstarter because Andrew Rev tried to fuck me over. So it's like, I definitely did what I said I was going to do. I'm going to take this shitty attempt at a con job and I'm going to turn it into a positive for myself. And it really worked out. So going forward, I'm just going to keep making my own comics. I'm not going to keep trying to get publishers at conventions to read my scripts and try to pair me up with an artist. At the least, I'll hand them over a copy of my comic and go, you want to publish this? Because, especially with the campaign being a success, which makes me so excited. I'm really happy that people actually want to read my stuff and they seem excited to read my comic. So going forward, I'm just going to keep doing Kickstarter campaigns. I'm going to keep producing my own books, maybe try to get publishers to pick them up after I finish it. And from then on, it's just like, I have another one planned for next year. I have like a little 90s like murder mystery type thing that I'm going to make it kind of cool. And I have really unique ideas for that Kickstarter. So going forward, that's what I'm doing. I am not going to worry about this con man anymore. I'm not going to worry about, does this publisher like me? And I've seen that with a lot of people. They don't get accepted into like Valiant's portfolio review, or they lose out on Mad Cave's writing contest, and then that discourages them and makes them want to quit. And it's like, guys, we didn't get into comic book writing to win.
Like, why are you upset that you didn't win? Like, that wasn't why I started writing comics. I didn't start writing comics going, this is going to win me awards and contests. Like, no, I started writing because I love my characters, I love my ideas, I love entertaining people. And, you know, like, just because somebody doesn't accept you into this selected few, like, you know, this elite group of 3 out of 5,000 people that entered, that doesn't mean your ideas suck. And it's never going to mean that your ideas suck. Like, if anything, it should just encourage you to keep writing and keep going forward. Like, just submit your stuff to the contest and then forget about that you even submitted it. Just keep going, keep writing, and keep making your own stuff. And then eventually you won't have to rely on people like fucking shitty Andrew Rev trying to pay you $10 a page to make really dope ass art. Like, he swindled some great artists. And you know, I think that's all that I'm going to do going forward is, you know, I'm going to write a comic, I'm going to produce that comic, and then I'm going to throw it on Kickstarter. And then after that, I'll just send it off to every comic pro like I used to do with my scripts, and hopefully get me and the artist a job working for that will actually pay us what we want and what we deserve. Because, you know, Terrific Productions does not have a future, guys. I hate to tell you. But, you know, I think I've rambled long enough. I've been going on for over 40 minutes here, and, you know, most of it was about Andrew Rev and his shittiness, and that guy has taken up way more of my energy than he fucking deserves. He is a con man in every sense of the word, and I don't like him. I think he's a piece of garbage. He's like a 68-year-old man who still hasn't learned that you can't treat people like shit in this world and expect to get away with it. So I feel sorry for anybody who got swindled by the guy. But at this point, I keep saying going forward. Why do I keep saying going forward? But at this point in life, like, if people are getting taken in by him, I've warned people enough. I've thrown it out there enough. The pros have all said stay away from the guy. So if he's swindling anybody at this point, it's like, that might just be on you, man. And I don't know. That's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed my little podcast of my journey into independent comics and my road from just a guy who used to write in his bedroom into now I have a comic book fully produced and on Kickstarter. And it's been funded. It was fully funded within a week. And I love you guys for it. And I appreciate you listening to this. I hope I didn't bore you. And I hope you found it at least a little bit interesting. At least heed the warning that you should not do business with Andrew Rev. I've told people ever since I did stand-up comedy, you should always beware of the person who is not creative who wants to be involved in the creative industry, because the chances are they're just trying to fuck you over out of your hard work and your creativity just to make a buck off of your ideas. So that if you can take away anything from this podcast, please take that away from it, because he is an idiot, he's a con man, and he's not the only one that's out there. So always be aware of those guys. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop, and I hope you all have a wonderful and great life. Thank you.
So there you have it. Your Andrew Rev story. He's a piece of shit. That guy is a total piece of human scum. I don't know what he's up to now, but I hope he's having a really bad time. Shortly after recording that podcast, I did an article with IO9 that exposed this guy's really shitty business practices, him roping people into contracts and not paying them, him scamming artists, scamming writers, scamming all kinds of other people. IO9 wrote a whole article about it, so if you can go to IO9, look for Andrew Rev, Terrific Productions, Youngblood, something along those lines, you could read all about it. But yeah, he is a gigantic piece of shit. Like, all the other creators that came out of the woodwork really had a lot to say about this guy. Like, one of the dudes had a band, and basically the guy was like, yeah, look, so I'll sign you to an artist contract, but like, I want a piece of your band too. Like, what? Why do you want a piece of my band? I'm a comic book writer. You publish comic books. What the fuck are you gonna do with my band? But yeah, he's not unique. Andrew Rev is not a unique human being as far as the creative industry is concerned. There is always somebody that has no talent that wants to get into the creative industry that you're in to capitalize off of your talent. Hey, this guy's funny. Let me make money off of him being funny. Yeah, those guys, they love it. They're all about it. Those absolute idiots. I can't stand the non-creative guy who is always trying to make money off of the creative guys. I could be your manager. What are you going to manage? So what you're saying is you're going to call other like comedy clubs and get me gigs? I can do that myself. I don't need you to manage me. You ridiculous assholes. By the way, I'll still fight Chris and Rob Shepard. If I ever see them out in public, that's on site. Very few people in my life are some on-site motherfuckers, and Chris and Rob Shepard are definitely two of them. I hope I see you guys at a comic book convention one day. Grab you by your fat necks and pull you over your booth and start kicking you until you cry to your mother. Your mother, whose last name is Pacheco, by the way. Done a background check on you guys when you tried to dox me and my wife for being jealous at the fact that we were competing for the same creative gig that I didn't even want. After I found out that I was working for somebody who was probably a gigantic cokehead, I decided I wanted nothing to do with that. But the happy ending of this story is Andrew Rev, Chris, Rob Shepard, all of them, they never released shit. Terrific Productions never released a single comic book. Their rights for Rob Liefeld's Youngblood have lapsed, and they have gone right back to Rob Liefeld where they deserve to be, where they belong. He's writing and drawing his own creation, something that should have always happened. And I think that he's releasing it soon, so be on the lookout for Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and think about how there could have been a Die Hard solo series of that could have been written by your boy here. And kind of glad that it didn't happen though, because I'm not trying to be stealing somebody else's stuff, but I would have accepted Andrew Rev's money. I really would have. I would have accepted that. I don't know about the contracts that he had were completely ridiculous, so I wouldn't have fucked with that. But if it would have just been give me money and write this script, I would have accepted that money. But when he wanted to put wording in the contracts of you ain't getting paid unless you sell 100,000 copies, and fuck you. I'll make that deal with anybody. Hey, anybody out there, make a comic book for me, and then I'll pay you if you sell me 100,000 copies. That's a good deal for me. That's a great deal for me, because you take all the risk. What a shitty businessman you were, Andrew Rev. I hope you're dead. Honestly, there's very few people that I wish death upon, but after what I've uncovered from you, God, you're a piece of shit. But that's it for me, guys. That's it for the universe of weirdos this week. My strange story time. I hope you liked it. I hope it wasn't too much of a cop-out. I don't think it was a cop-out. I took that trip to the toy store with the family this weekend, saw those two toys, and just remembered that piece of shit. And then remembered, oh, before I got interviewed for an IO9 article, I recorded my own podcast about my experience with them. So, hope you liked it. Hope you found it entertaining, and I hope that you find it a cautionary tale. If you're trying to create something out there, don't fuck with a non-creative person who's going to help you get it off the ground, because they don't have the passion for it. They just want your money, and they just want to ride your coattails. But that's it for me, guys. You can hit me up on email, planetwnba@gmail.com. Find me Twitter/X, jcraft247. And don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, whatever you can do to help the podcast grow. I love you for it. Thank you.